Hello, it's good to be with you again, and I want to share with you today on the subject, pushing through the obvious. Pushing through the obvious. Resurrection Sunday is quickly coming upon us, and people will be giving thanks and praise for the miracle of the resurrection. But the power of Easter is greater than one day, but focuses on the possibility and probability of the impossible and the improbable. In life, we are faced with all kinds of presuppositions in life. Things are placed within the realm of the possible, and others are called impossible. As people, we often resign ourselves to what we think is practical and what we think is probable or what we think is realistic. But the proposition of Easter stretches us beyond what we think is practical or even possible. Just think of what I'm talking about. Jesus rose from the grave, it said. Jesus rose from the dead. It was an empty tomb, an empty grave where a body had been laid. In John chapter 20 it is recorded how Mary went to the tomb, but the stone was already rolled away, and the place where the body was no longer found. Mary turned around and she ran to tell the others, but the news wasn't that he had risen, but that the body had simply been taken. But what really interests me is the fact that when the other disciples turned and ran to the tomb, and one stooped to look in and the other went in, and then both were in, and they saw that the coverings of the body was folded up and laid in a place all by themselves, but there was no body there. They kind of scratched their heads, the implication in the scripture is, and that they turned around and they simply went home. They simply went home because a logical explanation wasn't obvious to them. We do not know what to do with startling news. We don't know what to do when we are met with the improbable and the unexplainable. They simply went home. And because death is death and life is life and death never produces life, they could not fathom who would have stolen the body, nor the improbable claim of the resurrection. For the text in John chapter 20 verse 9 reads, "For as yet they did not understand the scripture, he must rise from the dead." But the challenge in this Easter story is that we are forced to imagine a world filled with the impossible becoming possible, where the truths of nature are muted by the new truths and realities through the miracle of the resurrection. This is not only true in the gospel story and with the resurrection of Jesus, but the startling and incredible truth of the resurrection helps us to understand that the impossible assertions of our own living are found not to be as true as we thought they were. There are always people and institutions and systems trying to define and label and make us fit within its little boxes. But just as the tomb could not contain a spirit as big as Jesus, the miracle of Easter means that our God-filled spirits also cannot be contained or limited either. In other words, if God has not limited your hopes, your dreams, and the possibilities that we have in our life, then they're not limited. There's full potential for them. I'm reminded of the words in Philippians chapter 4, verse 13. It says, "I can do all things through him who strengthens me." Making a reference to Christ, making a reference to Jesus, that because of the resurrection, we can do all things through our God, through our faith, through our claims, through our relationship with Jesus Christ. Through Jesus and because of the resurrection, we have assurance, strength, and a sense of hopefulness that all things are indeed possible. Or you find Jesus teaching his disciples in Mark chapter 10, verse 27. He says, "For mortals it is impossible, but not for God. For God all things are possible." And obviously we have seen the possibilities of God in this miracle, in this miraculous, awesome act of the resurrection. That a body broken and mutilated, laid in a tomb, a body that was alive and now dead, in fact we find is alive again. The power of God, the power of the impossible being possible. And in that we discover that all of our dreams, all of our hopes, all of the things that we hope to do in our living, they too are possible. No matter what man or woman tries to claim, and no matter how much they try to diminish our spirit, it is because of the power of the resurrection that we find that there is a strength and determination within us, and a spirit within us that allows us to go forward and fulfill that which we thought and others thought was impossible. We resonate with the idea of the possibilities of God during this period of Easter, and not with the impossibilities of life and the world. We discover, peering at the empty tomb, that the things of certainty like death are truly drawn into question, and the other things of certainty like what is simply is, and we must face the realities of life, is also drawn into question. We find during this Easter that we can push through what seems to be immutable truths of life and understand that there is new reality, new hope, and possibility that lies just beyond what we thought was obvious. Jesus has certainly risen. The resurrection is certainly real. And with that, life is no longer the same. So sisters and brothers, my prayer is simply that you go forth and have a blessed time. Go forth and seize your dream. Go forth and live for the glory of God. God bless you. Happy Easter, and I will speak with you again very soon. Take care.